What's happening, folks? Back without the reaction, back with some more Alphaville, and we're returning to Prostitute 1994, and the next track is Parade. So parade can mean some different things, but generally speaking, it's a display, a presentation, and often a form of ceremony. Now that can be more social or cultural minded, like with parades to celebrate holidays and to encourage the public to take part in a particular festivity or experience. It can also be a military parade, which is often like a show of force and a demonstration of capability. So again, depending on the context, parades can have different connotations, but the specific denotation is some sort of mobile public presentation done for a performance of some characteristic or in celebration of some significant situation or time period. So given that it's a single word title, it's hard to get a sense of which direction this might be heading, which feels particularly appropriate given the meaning of the word, but yeah, I'll see what I can catch on a first listen. I do wonder whether it's the type of word as a song title that might function on multiple levels. I guess we'll find out, or I'll see what I can hear on a first listen. This is Alphaville. The track is Parade, and it's from their 1994 album Prostitute.
In the silence and the national anthems of blues in these days flag him down. Rest in peace. What peace do you mean when the boys are coming back? His life on TV. He's died as a hero can be, but he didn't die for nothing, my dear. A video of his death is traveling the world, flagging down. Rest in peace. What peace do you mean when the boys are coming back? The boys are coming back. When the boys are coming back. To a boy who's parading to heaven, and she puts all the blame on the government, flag him down. Rest in peace. What peace do you mean when the boys are coming back? The boys are coming back. When the boys are coming back. Are parading to heaven, my friend. Put all the blame on you, on you. on you.
Oof. Whew, what a tune, what a heavy thematic journey that was. So, okay, it's 94. The context is the end of the Cold War, and again, this might not mean, I mean the context of the album, of the year in which this track came out, not necessarily what it's about. It could be about wars going back through human history, or of the 20th century more generally. But thinking about how this is post the end of the Cold War, moving into a phase that, at least compared to other decades and other parts of the 20th century, had less overt conflict. And yes, there were definitely hot conflicts during the 90s, but it's really interesting because it's talking about what sounds like a military parade, and one that is done to show honor and bravery and to celebrate those who have sacrificed themselves for the greater good, for the national good. And it sounds like this is being done on television, beaming to people all over the country and indeed all over the world, and is therefore meant to have an impact beyond the place where it's being held. But the references about soldiers coming home in coffins, and a brother or a boyfriend or a significant family member coming back dead in a coffin, and the people who knew him being upset and finger pointing and blaming, suggests that it's not all being taken at face value, and there's a sense that, whatever one thinks about, patriotic rhetoric and so on, that there are real consequences, and they might not be worth it in a larger sense. And who's to blame? Well, yes, the government, because they send these people off to war, sometimes for transparently flimsy purposes, or rather reasons, or for reasons that are not the same as they're stating publicly, or for foreign wars that ultimately are like quicksand, meaning, there's no real progress, it's just kind of a meat grinder, and maybe even the formally acknowledged goals aren't achieved, and so, what is really gained by sending an entire generation of young people off to their deaths? But by the end, it's like it's blaming you, meaning maybe other citizens, excuse me, who, for one reason or another, don't take a stand against it, or sort of go along with it, and let their sons and daughters be brought into this fold and ultimately be put at risk and maybe sacrificed for these causes which are not as noble or moral as they seem. So I don't know if this is attached to any particular conflict or any national culture in particular, but I feel like there are many nations, both in the West, in the East, in the economic North, in the South, that put extra emphasis on martial glory and the greater good and the power of the state and the military, and there are many lives that are held in the balance because of these martial cultures and the way they clash, and the way that, again, governments and maybe even citizenry of different places go along with what has come before and essentially just fall in line. So it feels like a critique of a lot of different things at once, but at the end it's sort of pointing the camera at you and saying that if you're one of the people watching this, if you're one of the people who's taken part in this or who's not opposing it, then the blame comes to you. It's like, yeah, there's people giving orders, and there's those who maybe sign up because they think it's noble but aren't really understanding a wider view, but it seems to come back to everybody. It's really everybody's fault. It's all of humanity's fault. So yeah, it's a really dark, if beautifully sonically, track that seems to use Marian's voice, the way he's falling down and the track sort of cascades downward, and I wondered if those sounds that felt like they were falling from the sky at the end could be interpreted as, the just destruction and bombs and the way that death rains down from above, but then is celebrated and commemorated in parades where everyone's supposed to be cheering and saluting and feeling, noble, that this was all worth it and there's nothing to question about what's going on. So it feels like there's a deliberate contrast between the elegance of the sonics and the judgment and critique of the lyrics, and also the lyrics, or rather the vocals, are part of that dual-sided thematic exploration. So I'm sure there's people who have greater insight on this one, who may know a specific referent that Marian, or, I don't know if this is written by him, I would assume so, but yeah, whether, Alphaville here is addressing a very particular conflict or national culture, or whether it's something that indeed can be extrapolated to essentially the world over and all the nations and peoples within it. But yes, it feels very telling after having gone through the 20th century to hear a song like this. Obviously, there's conflicts going back to the earliest recorded history right up into the present day, but one can say that the 20th century was particularly brutal given the heavy nationalism in multiple decades during it, as well as the technology, which had gotten to a point that it had never been before. So yeah, it feels like a very heavy tune, though I wouldn't have guessed that by the way it started. So a really powerful one that my brain will be pondering for a while. Let me know what you think of it, and I will see you next time. Peace.